Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving up your Saturday afternoon for us on such a lovely day. I wish it was rainy. We would have had more people. I just want to acknowledge that we are on traditional and unceded territories of Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, Stolo, and Squamish nations, peoples of this country, and we are grateful for the opportunity to present challenging and affirming discussions and films on these lands. And as VTFF, I'd like to say we will continue to question the given histories, systems, and identities through film and discourse in this country and in our country back home in Turkey. I would like to introduce before I introduce the panelists, we have Michael Boucher here. He is the president, the director of the SFU Cultural Programs, our partner. Michael was not here at the gala, so he would just like to say a few words quickly. Thank you, Michael.
Great. Welcome, everyone. It's just a pleasure and it's just a delight. I recognize some of the faces here. We do a lot of crossovers with a lot of our partners, so that's what makes it an enriching experience for us all. We're really excited about how things are unfolding. I mean, Turkish Film Festival is going to be a fixture and a long-standing partner of ours in the future, and it's just great discourse that is happening here. And we love to play the edge in regarding the conversations that happen and the nature of the discourse. We're not afraid to go into the challenging, but we want to make sure that everyone is respectful of that challenge in the process. So anyway, without further ado, have yourselves a great session today. Thank you very much.
So we are going to, so Adel Iskender here is the moderator. I'm going to introduce him very briefly, very soon, sorry. And these wonderful people here are going to speak for about an hour and a half. And then we will take questions from you for about 20 minutes. Is that okay? Sorry, I'm not.
It's a surprise for us.
So I would like to start with, can I say it in Arabic?
Yes.
Adel Iskender. Adel. Adel Iskender is a British-born scholar and post-colonial theorist. He wrote several works on Arab media, most prominently on Al Jazeera. He currently teaches global communication at Simon Fraser University in Canada, and he's the co-editor of a magazine called Jaddaliya. Is that how you say it? Jaddaliya. And Jaddaliya, by the way, I read it. It's not too academic for me. And so you should follow it. It's actually written in 4 or 5 languages, including Turkish, English, French. You should really follow it. I highly recommend it. Adele is the editor of several books, too many to list here. But my favorite is the book he co-edited with somebody, I can't remember, about Edward Said. I love Edward Said. And Iskandar's work deals with media, digital media, and identity and politics. And no wonder he's our moderator today. And prior to SFU, you were a professor at Georgetown University. So big applause for Adel. Baljit Sangra here. By the way, I stalk 3 of these people. I just stalk them. I just go wherever they go and then follow them, and it worked out. Baljit's films, she's a documentary filmmaker, and her films shine a light on the underrepresented voices in BC. So she has a very important job. She's an award-winning filmmaker, and her films have routinely premiered at festivals around the world. And she's currently, by the way, in a post-production stage of a very timely documentary about racism in hockey. And for me, that's very important because one of my best friends is Indo-Canadian, and her son was in hockey, and he left hockey because of the racism. So she's going to be the first one to see that. And Baljit is the president of Viva Mantra Films. A big applause. I'm speaking too much, but that's because of Carmen. Carmen Aguirre has a huge CV. So can I cut it short? Sorry. She's many things, so I'm just gonna Google her later. She's an award-winning Chilean-Canadian actor. She's an internationally best-selling author. She's a playwright. She's a core artist at Vancouver's Electric Company. She has written and co-written 25 plays, and she facilitates, this is important, I think, she facilitates the Theater of the Oppressed workshop for refugee groups, indigenous communities, and youth groups. So thank you for doing that. As Jem Kayal, who you have met in the last 2 days or so, he's a filmmaker and cinematographer from Bavaria, Germany, originally Turkish. He has directed and co-directed several feature-length documentaries. Arabesque. Thursday night, we all saw his film, Love, Deutschmarks and Death, a very dense documentary and very archival, sort of informative documentary. And here's Belçim Bilgin. Oh, sorry, before Belçim, a round of applause for Jem. And Belçim Bilgin. Now, she's, oh my goodness, she's such a prolific actor despite her very young age. And she started her acting career in the film Zero Kilometer. Yeah? Which was in
Cannes Film Festival competition.
Yes, so it was in the Cannes Film Festival competition department. She also starred in Silent. That was named the best short film at Cannes. Two times Cannes. Yeah, she starred in a Hollywood production of Backstabbing for Beginners, and she also starred in Turkey's submission for the Oscars. I forget what year, but The Butterfly's Dream, which is also available on Netflix. She acted together with actors such as John Malkovich, Ben Kingsley, and so many names in various motion pictures. Recently, she has also... Can I mention, this is important, that she has come to prominence with her activist identity. She has this motto, sustainable world, sustainable life, livable life. And so she became involved in several social projects. And so she's an ocean ambassador for Greenpeace, among many other things. Yes. And all the Turks in the audience know and how many TV series she's been in and how many Netflix films she's been in. But now, I should stop talking. And I'm going to pass the microphone to Adel Iskandar. Thank you, Adel, for facilitating. It's my honor to have you guys here.
Thank you. Hello. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much, Noral, for the very, very generous introduction to myself. I'm surrounded by remarkable people who've done amazing things, and as academics, we're usually not in the limelight in this way, so this is a bit interesting and new to me. Having said that, I want to go back and do a couple of things. I know we have a lot of time, right? There's nothing we have more than time. So I'm going to take a moment just to add a couple of quick points. I want us to kind of revisit the land acknowledgement because we are uninvited settlers on this land, and it's important for us to recognize this. In the same way that we try to think and contemplate what it means to be supporting indigenous communities on their native lands, it's really critical for us to think about how we are part and parcel of the colonial project here, even as we occupy this space. The room that we're in today is called the Gold Core Center, which has its own meaning. It is part of a long legacy of excavation that has displaced and dehumanized indigenous communities here. So as we have this beautiful glittery experience, it's important for us to recognize the historical responsibilities that we have and how to unsettle those. And that is exactly why we're here, because we're going to unsettle identities. And I cannot be more enthusiastic about the panel today, because even though it appears as though each participant here comes from a different experience, a different sort of idiosyncratic world, we are all united in our attempt to dismantle and disrupt. And all of the works, everybody who's done anything here has dismantled and disrupted in one way or another. So I'm very excited about this conversation. So are you guys ready? No, you're not. Neither am I. No, I know. Okay, so let's start, okay? The title of today's panel is On Screen and Unseen, okay? All of you have participated in making possible representations of either the self or other. So I want to invite each of you, in turn, to tell us a little bit about what that negotiation is like. Negotiating what should be on the screen and what shouldn't, and whether or not you have the right to take those decisions. In some cases, you're a filmmaker. In some cases, you're a scriptwriter. You're writing a screenplay. You're writing a play. Or perhaps you are at the whim of the decision makers who are writing these scripts or deciding what comes in and what gets excluded. To what extent do you get to call the shots as to what gets on the screen and what doesn't? And anybody can start us off.
Maybe we start with the directors.
The decision makers?
Oh, thank you.
Or is it the producers?
Okay. I'm a director from Germany, and I belong to a minority there, Turkish workers who went there in the 60s and 70s. My parents went there in the 70s, and I was born and put up there, raised there. So, and the situation of the third, fourth, fifth generation over there is still not so good, I'd say. There is a discourse, I say a fake discourse about integration, you know, because there is always the demand from German side, yeah, they're not integrating themselves, you know, they don't want to, and so this is what you always get. But on the other side, over the last 60 years now, the Turkish people went to Germany. The governments, they did not support really the integration processes, I'd say, because mostly they were thinking that in the beginning they were thinking these workers who come would return into Turkey, but this never happened. And Germany, up until 2014 or 15, was still saying that they're not a country of immigration. And so we and then also our children and grandchildren, we're treated still like people who don't belong there. And I think it's important to tell that in advance, because we're here in Canada, and here it's different because this country is based on immigration. So what then happened in Germany all the time was because everybody was thinking that these people go back into their own countries. It was not only Turkish people who went to Germany for work, it was the Italian, the Spanish, the Portuguese, Greek people from South Europe. So South Europe was somehow the industrial reserve army of north of Europe. So because all these people stayed there, somehow Germany became a mixed population or a mixed society, let's say, but still there is still this demand that there is this something they call Leitkultur, the leading culture, and this should be German, and everybody should adapt to that culture. And so representation-wise, on screen, you know, Turkish people are not seen so much. We have German-Turkish directors, like the most famous of them is Fatih Akın, that everybody knows here for sure. But the representation is always somehow, I don't know, weird, I'd say, because there are all these cliches, and also the Turkish or German-Turkish directors, they're always somehow playing with these cliches, or they're doing films that are like, where you get always this feeling, nah, I'm not so sure whether this should be told that way. And that's happening a lot. Then besides the Turkish, because we from Turkey, we are not one homogeneous cultural mass. It's very, very diverse. We have the Kurdish people, we have Armenian minorities, we have the Alevi religion, we have the Sunni religion, we have it's a huge country, so there's a lot of things coming together. And Anatolia always was, was a geography where a lot of people just came through, So when we say people from Turkey or Turkish people came to Germany, all this diversity came too. I think that's also important to say. And there is almost no representation of that happening in the media. And the movie that I did, Love, Deutschmarks and Death, is a film about 60 years of music culture of people from Turkey. I'm not saying Turkish people from Turkey, because, to represent all the others too. And during my research while doing this film, I did a huge archival research at German broadcasters. I found a lot of documentary films and a lot of stuff concerning the musical culture of people from Turkey and Germany, but somehow it was just always little. It was always, there was either no representation or misrepresentation, even though, for instance, Turkish artists, they sold millions of albums in Germany, but they weren't represented in the billboards, for instance, even though they were selling like really millions and millions of singles and also albums. And after my movie was premiered in Berlin at the Berlin Film Festival in February, then something happened also in Germany that people, Germans were like stunned how it could be that 60 years of that musical culture, that they never heard of it. Like literally, they didn't know nothing about it. They were as virgin to that culture as you are here in Canada, And this is the very stunning thing. And I get now the question, why is that? And I can't tell you. Why? I can just for myself explain it the way, if you make these people visible and these cultures visible, then you somehow have to confront yourself also with the fact that these people are here, and you evaluate them also somehow, and then you have to talk, eye to eye to them on the same level. And I suppose this wasn't wanted. This was not a master plan, there was not one person who's saying, we don't do this way. I think it's a cultural thing, that, also people who work in the media, and also people who are responsible for just giving away funding, for instance, or giving away TV slots, that they did not do that, or is it called scarcely? Scarcely. Now we are at a situation. We are somehow part of that society, but we are not. There's a huge racism going on in Germany. Daily racism, structural racism, and we somehow have to deal with it as the new Germans. I let it here.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
I forgot the question. What was it again?
Jem got me excited about so many different tangents as well. But I was asking, to what extent do you think about what is unseen or what is not included?
Okay. So the first thing I'd like to do is follow in Michael Boucher's suggestion of taking the discussion and the discourse to the edge. And I'd like to say that I am not an uninvited settler here. Mm-hmm. I am a refugee. I absolutely reject that I am an uninvited settler. I'm a political refugee from Chile, known as Walmapu in the Mapudungun language, in Abiyala, the Guna language for Latin America. The reason I am here is because of the same colonial project that you were referring to earlier. I'm also a victim of that colonial project. I'm a survivor of crimes against humanity, literally, me and my body, because of that colonial project. We did not come here as uninvited settlers, and when we arrived, we were actually welcomed by members of the Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish nations. So it's very important for me to clarify that. Yeah. I do not I am not a colonialist in any way. I do not believe that a group of exploited and oppressed people moving from one place to another immediately means that they are colonizing the indigenous people of that other place. Yeah. So just needed to clarify that. And thank you so much for everything that you just said. Yes, this is a country of immigrants and refugees. And all the space that has been made available in the arts in Canada for racialized people, like those of us on this panel, is thanks to the work of racialized people in this country who have taken huge risks, often have been blacklisted, and had their careers in jeopardy for speaking up and speaking out. I can see you nodding because I'm sure you can relate. Okay, so let me talk about my experience on screen here in Vancouver as a Vancouver-based screen actor. I started to do screen in Vancouver as an actor in the early 90s. At that time, just like now, at that time, almost all of the productions that were being shot here were from the United States, from Hollywood. The only roles that I was being seen for was hookers and maids because I'm a Latina woman. It is only very recently that I've actually been seen and doing roles like doctors and lawyers. And again, that is thanks to the amazing amount of work that people from marginalized and racialized communities have been doing for the last decades in order to fight those racist stereotypes and those racist depictions of in my case, of Latinx people, of Latinx women on screen. One of the big, discussions that's happening right now publicly is, what is a Latinx person? Because Hollywood seems to think that Spaniards are Latinx people, right? So, you have people like Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz and Antonio Banderas taking our roles. I want to be very clear. If I were to move to Spain right now and were to, try and get work in the screen industry in Spain, it would be very difficult for me because in Spain I'm a racialized person because, I am a product of colonization, of the Spanish colonization of Latin America. And there is a slur in Spain for Latin Americans, which is sudaca. So I would just be a sudaca. And I can guarantee that I would not get any roles playing a Spaniard, right? And yet Spaniards come to North America and take the roles of Latinx people, right? So right now there's a big discourse. One of the people that's at the head of that, one of the most famous people that's at the forefront of that argument is John Leguizamo, who is a fearless spokesperson for Latinx and proper Latinx representation on screen, where he constantly says, why? Why are these Spaniards who are Europeans, who are considered white, taking the roles of Latinx people? So I could go on forever, as you can imagine, but I'll stop there because I would really love to hear from the others.
Thank you.
It's like that because mine is more micro, according to you as a storyteller.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, so I'm Baljeet Sangra. I'm a documentary filmmaker, but a bit about my background. I would say, I guess, third generation Canadian. My great-grandfather came in the early 1900s. I'm just going to try to sort of talk about the personal and then maybe my work that's a sort of, could be seen as political, even though it's based on personal. But I just find it really interesting, like, I have a big family here. Our family's been here well over 100 years, but we don't really share, like, the struggle and the stories. You get little bits of it when I was growing up, I would see adults talking, but never so much about the hardships. And, now looking back, I wish I had opportunity to, say, speak to my grandfather or, what was, that isolation, the racism, and then you would speak to people of my parents' generation, they'd be like, oh, it wasn't so bad. But then you're like, but, you worked in a logging camp and they were like, segregated by ethnicity. Like, how is that a good thing? You weren't allowed to buy a house, say, in Victoria, or you were limited to, you know, what opportunities were available to you, like in school and so forth. And, you know, my grandfather was here when, you know, Indians weren't allowed to vote, and just so many stories, but they never really shared a lot of it. I mean, I did see some political activism more like around just, you know, more contemporary issues around voting or unions and so forth. So I think I've just been in the periphery, but I wish I had asked more, and the sort of collective history. So maybe I was sort of an archivist in a weird way, but not really. But I mean, that sort of stayed with me when I got an opportunity to be like a storyteller. I kind of, I don't know how that happened, but it happened. You know, I'm really seeing a change, but it's definitely never been easy. As a young person, you know, when I was growing up here, just, you would never see yourself reflected on the screen or TV, and if you did, it was super stereotypical. Yeah, and, you know, and then, you know, even, you know, like Apu or something, like, I don't know why people feel they can tell an Indian, a joke with an Indian accent when, you know, they're not Indian, like, just all that kind of stuff that you just kind of like, oh, okay, here we go. But just not seeing yourself, not being reflected, definitely stereotypes. And, you know, cut to, like, we'll go over a bunch of years, but now there definitely is this conversation about who should be telling whose story, and I'm really happy about that. And definitely, you know, as Carmen said, that's been on, you know, on the backs of a lot of people really pushing for that, advocating for that, sacrificing for that. And yeah, so with that, I've been lucky to have some opportunity to do some documentary filmmaking. And, you know, it's a lot of pressure too. And I've been really interested in telling stories from my own community, because I just feel like it's never been represented. And if it is, it just sort of adds to the stereotype, because it's kind of like, well, what has been left out? You know, you can just take a slice of a story and just stick to that, or project it in a certain film or in the news clip or whatever in a certain way to add to that story. But what is not being seen? What has not been talked about? What are the nuances? So I did a film called Warrior Boys. It was my first documentary, and I made it really simple. I went to a high school in Surrey. I had 2 kids at the crossroads that were in and out of the principal's office, that were kind of in and out of gangs, followed them over a school year, and a young guy who was an ex-gangster, and he got politicized, and just sharing his experience. And, you know, he spoke about the racism growing up in Vancouver, and, you know, needing to just trying to find some solidarity, and also just to get through high school. So that, and then another person who's a South Asian principal. And just, you know, also to see yourself reflected in school, right? That helps. It could really add and not just kick you out right away. So it's a simple story, but just, you know, it was on television. And the response from the community was just like, wow. I mean, some kid filmed it on YouTube and put it on his YouTube, and I just like thousands of hits, you know, he just filmed the TV. It had like global in the corner. I'm like, hey, that's my film, man. Why are you putting it out there? But anyways, and I'm like, should I make a big deal and take it down? But I'm like, no, like people are watching it, whatever. But but that just shows, like, you know, to have yourself reflected back at you, and you know, having the kids share their own story and what they're going through. And it's kind of like, what do you show, what you don't show? So I think I was really kind of conscious of, like, the missing elements, like what's the day-to-day, like what's your, you know, just what's going on in your life, and just building that trust and that vulnerability. And, you know, I did show it to the kids before it went out. I'm like, are you good with this? Because they're going to have to wear that in school. They could be teased about it, you know? And no, they said, no, we feel good about it. That's okay. Yeah, so I was like, wow. And that's all that really mattered to me, you know? Then I felt like, okay, I got this. And I showed it to everybody that was in the film, the main characters. And I did interview all the politicians, and I cut them all out of the movie. Like, and the police and all of it, all got cut. Just kept it simple. And, you know, sometimes a personal or simple story is so more universal, right? And then, you know, I'm not going to get into my whole filmography, but then, you know, I think I took from that just, you know, the responsibility in telling the stories, but also how important it is, you know, and, I did something on, after dealing with youth, I'm like, I can't chase teenagers all day, like it's so hard for filming to make an appointment and all that. I'm going to seniors now. They're gonna like want to see me. Anyway, then I did a film with seniors, and now South Asian seniors living in care and extended assisted living in Surrey, and there's so much stigma in the South Asian community to have a senior in care. Right away, people would ask, oh, what happened in your family? Why are you living here? And I mean, that wasn't what the movie was about, but it was really, I thought it'd be really, it's just a nice place to see people who probably might not even be friends because they come from such different backgrounds, although they're South Asian, from class, different diasporic countries, like from Fiji, Africa, India, and just meeting here and their stories. And it was just really interesting because, as also when you're a senior, you're very honest. They shared things about senior abuse, feeling neglected, feeling really marginalized in the community, just a lot of interesting things, and also just about life. Some were really inspiring, like this one lady, every Friday she wouldn't speak. She had a sign on her door, she takes silence. And she didn't take food, and she would just meditate all day, and she's like, I need that, to get through, and that's my sannyasi. I'm looking to the next stage of my life, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just learning so much. But it was so rich, and they were just so happy for me to be there, but there was so much richness in their stories of how they came to be there, like all their trials and tribulations, and work, and it just was remarkable. It was just like a treasure trove of stories that just weren't really shared, so I was really blessed to have that opportunity. And then Because We're Girls, let's just jump to that. One of the sisters was a friend of mine, so I even felt even more responsibility in telling that story. And, they're so brave to share that they, being sexually abused by their cousin, and they took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And so I followed that story in the present, and then I went back to sort of add context, to set the scene, like growing up in a small town and racism and pressure to always immigrate, bring people in your family over, and just all like what the parents were going through, what they were going through. Also there was 3 girls, the father would cry when there was another daughter, so you could just give context of maybe why they had a hard time sharing this. But also in telling the story is kind of like, you could just stick to trauma or this experience, and I felt it was so important, there's so much more than their trauma, that we also have to show some lightness, like fun, sisterhood, a celebration, even though they were able to confront their parents for the wrongs of their childhood, and they saw their day in court by confronting the abuser who was their cousin, there was a lot of beautiful moments, lightness in the darkness, and I thought that was super important. And it's all that nuances that I think I really resonated with that film. So I think we're in a really interesting place right now where, who's telling whose story, how do you tell that story, representation, and I definitely acknowledge it's definitely been, in the work of everybody here, it has been pushing that envelope to dismantle, to disrupt, and really happy to be here and share my experience.
Thank you so much. It feels like our stories make all of us to get involved with art, and basically in the very source it is all identity. For me, I born and grown up in Ankara, the capital of Turkey, with a Kurdish origin. And when I decided to be an actress, I was 13 years old and had a traffic accident, broke my back, and lying down, start to read Chekhov, Shakespeare, and fall in love with the possibility of becoming someone else and just embodying another person, how many lifetime we can put inside one life. So after that research, I start to be like a Ankara Art Theater youngest student for a while. And what was so much driven for me as a Kurdish origin grown up in Ankara, so many moments I was faced with the reality of, because politically a lot of issues were happening at the news. And in the school, in the environment that I am breathing in, anywhere out of my home, I was feeling suppressed because of my identity of being Kurdish. So when I start to go to workshops in the world for becoming an actor and to explore about it, all my colleagues were coming out on stage of saying that, okay, my parental kind of trauma made me an actor. I feel so stranger to... Mine was not that. Mine was, yes, they are not maybe perfect, but I know that they did their best, my parents. But I was more feeling like, you know, I want to fight with prejudice. And I really feel and save the reality of seeing each other with some filters is making us blind. And I really feel like, okay, if I am aware of it, I can fight through art, becoming someone, defending them, and to tell some stories. And now I am immigrant. So many identity. Identity is the issue for me. Being a woman is also a subject in my very beautiful country. So it is quite like defending. In my 30th first time, I start to think about who I am really. I was thinking that I'm enough lucky to be an artist and I'm engaging with who I am, but no. There was so many unresolved questions in that time, and 30 was giving me the courage to go more deeper and to go more brave into who I am. And I have a son, 12 years old. It's been 4.5 months that we start to live in Vancouver. And as I am here, I'm feeling like this territory of giving all the reconciliation and respect to the autochthon of the earth is somehow holding a space for really becoming who authentically I am. And my journey is still going on. I am willing to tell some stories, and I don't really know what does it mean being Belgium. I'm really, I wear it to a little bit fun for me, because I really feel like we are truly connected beyond our names, beyond our stories, beyond our heritage identity. And I am so much willing to connect that. And as an actor, my work is to knowing myself, analyze this really objectively, to be able to embody someone else and the transmit of your stories to the audience in the right way. So the work and the journey is long, it seems, but very exciting, because as we are going deeper, it's getting more colorful and more connected. So excitingly, the story is going on for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you how deeply touched I am with every one of your comments, largely because we really got to the essence of what makes the work, and really it's at the core of who you are. Everything from what you said, Carmen, about, you know, challenging this notion that you are being perceived as part of the colonial project and that you've been settled here against your will. I mean, that is part of an experience that I think is really glaringly important and needs to be said. And there is a revisionist history around building solidarities between, you know, disenfranchised, dehumanized, dispossessed communities of the world who are subject to colonialism. And for all of you, each of you has kind of elaborated and brought out the self. My question wasn't really about who you are or what you do, but that's where identity starts. But also, all of you recognize the fault lines of where you are almost trepidatious about trying to speak on behalf of others. That while you do represent something, that representation is very fraught. You know, everything from what you said, Jem, about, okay, so what does it mean to be from Turkey as opposed to being Turkish? And then, Palchim, what you described about, you know, trying to figure out what that identity is once that identity moves. And so I want us to kind of revisit the point about the title that deals with the idea of flux. Movement, transmission, and all of us, in one way or another, are a function of identities relocating from place to place. And what does that mean? So can you tell me a little bit more about what that movement, Carmen, you started us off with that actually, about this displacement, uprooting, and exile, and what that means. But if we can kind of elaborate more about this idea of what it means to be moving and perhaps tell us a little bit more about where you think your identities might go from here, or the identities that you speak of. What does that representation look like in 5, 10, 15 years? How do we imagine those identities in the future?
It feels like in the future it's not going to be even a subject, because now with through the avatar and metaverse we are talking so many different things. There is no identity there. I am watching it through my son's plays. He's putting wings and choosing an avatar of a feminine woman, and it is just liberating, because whatever they want to become, there's a space for them to explore in that way. So we will be maybe not speaking identity in the way that we are speaking right now. This will be primitive discussion, that's nostalgia, hopefully, in some ways that made us separate. The part that connect us is beautiful, of course. I'm sorry, I just jumped.
No, that's great. And there's no order. I mean,
I thought he asked you, pardon.
No. It's to everyone. And I think maybe we can also talk about this issue of authenticity, because we're always thinking about what is an authentic identity. If an identity is constantly shifting and changing, what does it mean to be authentic, traditional, true to some core? Are we always going to invent and reinvent that? So that's open. I mean, there's no order. Anybody can speak at any point.
Authenticity is the subject of, like, we are so many filters of our stories creating is making us unreached to our own authentic self. Most of the time we are choosing our attachments on behalf of authenticity, because we want to be lovable, we want to be acceptable from the others. So this is where it is, for me, creating a full-time awareness of, okay, I'm doing this, I'm human, it's okay, but why I am doing this, which part is making me far away from my authenticity. These are all like things that I'm thinking, working on a lot, especially right now in my life.
So I'm not a scholar, and so I get very, very confused when I talk to a scholar.
Okay, so I can't help being me.
Oh, no, it's not a criticism, it's an admiration. So I hope I understood your question. Yes. I've never been to university, so I can't,
You're not missing
I get
much.
very confused, I know. But, yeah, so I think that there's a question here that refers also, what it makes me think of is this trend in the arts world in Canada of self-identification, right? When it comes to race, I would never talk about gender, when it comes to race and ethnicity. And I think what's happening is that we are coming up against white people self-identifying as racialized people.
Yes, of course.
I know that's happening a lot it's quite the discussion in the Indigenous community, but it goes back to what you were saying, is who gets to tell whose story, and the whole question of the white gaze, and what I was saying earlier about there have been racialized and equity denied communities in this country in the arts that have fought so long and so hard at great personal and professional cost to create the space and resources for our stories to be told. And now we're realizing that this whole notion of self-identification is starting to go a little bit off the rails, because as far as I'm concerned, it can't just be what I think I am or what I feel I am. Clarifying again, I would never say this about gender. I'm talking about race and ethnicity. It also has to be, what are the material conditions on the ground for you, right? So when I walk down the street, when I walk down the street in Vancouver, I am seen as a brown woman. I have been told that since the moment I arrived here. When I walk down the street in Chile, I am not seen as a brown woman. I'm just seen as a mixed Chilean person. So we know that race is a construct, right? And so then the question, it can't just be what do you think you are or how do you feel you are in terms of race and ethnicity. The question has to be, well, what are the barriers you have encountered out in the world? And what are the privileges? So that is what that made me think of, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier. about who gets to play what. Well, yes, in an ideal world, anybody can play anything, but where that has gotten us so far is that it just basically means that white people get to play everything, right? And so eventually, I think we would all want to get to a place where anybody actually can play anything on a level playing field. We're not there yet. I think I might have just been talking in circles, so I'll just leave it there. And sorry, you wanted to say something?
Last year, I was in Essen, that's a town in Germany, and there I went off the stage because it was so boring, because everybody was talking about identity, and I was like, what?
Please don't do that today.
No, because I was supposed to be asked about my movies and about my work, and it was always, yeah, and where does the inspiration come from, and how was it being a Turkish German, all this. And from us is always also expected that we somehow make a striptease and always tell people about our parents. You know, I never would ask nobody about his or her parents.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's a very personal question. So I was saying, no, I'm not telling you how my parents came to Germany and how they suffered, and and how my father became an alcoholic, lost all his money, and then committed suicide. No, all of this is none of your business. That was a joke. I was like, what? So this identity and authenticity concept is very problematic in a globalized world, I suppose. You know, nowadays the question is what's authentic really, or traditional. You know, because all this progress is everywhere in the world. In the tiniest village in Anatolia, you know, they have internet. So things are developing, and also migration or people move from space from geographies to geographies. That's the oldest story in the world also, and Europe has an immense story of migration, and colonialism is basically nothing else but migration, you know, to other territories, let's say. So it's so too general somehow, you know, sometimes. So when I get these questions, it's like I can't tell or say nothing about it, because I just feel as an individual and not as Turkish, Kurdish, and German, and you know, because I think it's not always the where you come from or from which culture you come from. It's maybe my identity is more shaped by listening to electronic music than being from there and there.
Yes.
You know, and so it's tricky to talk about these things, because the one thing that we always do is also we reduce ourselves to being migrants, you know, because we're talking always in this discourse, like we always talk about identity, authenticity, race, and we are somehow reproducing this discourse all the time, you know, and basically that's also what everybody wants to hear, because we are somehow also through that making us to the others ourselves, you know, and maybe we should sometimes, not always, because when there's racism you have to talk, you know, and you have to also somehow fight for for representation and all these things, but often it's just blah blah, and it's just, you know, it's doing the opposite, because you're always like somehow caught in this discourse and you just don't get out of it, you know? Okay,
but I'd like to challenge that. Well, I didn't realize I was going to be that person on this panel.
I'm moderating, so I can't take sides.
One of the reasons that I think that one of the things that we have to bring into this discourse is the question of labor, right? It has to be connected to labor. Who gets the work? That's what I go back to. So again, what I was saying earlier about, you know, I think picking up from what you were saying, right? Who gets to tell what story? Who gets to play what part? To me, that is directly connected to who is actually getting the work, right? So we can never forget that, you know? Anyway, yes.
That's very true, and
that's all I want to say.
Maybe we have to be more radical in what we are wanting. You know, the thing is, okay, white people, we want your money, right? I mean, we want your jobs, because, you know, you are privileged, you are at that in that position, and this position somehow is the reason for the, let's say, the structural racism, why I don't get a job, let's say, and we have to break that hierarchy, more or less. This we have to express, that's true, but we can't always stick in this identity discourse. That's what I'm saying, because this is like blah blah. It's like, where do I come from? How do I feel? No, all this, Then you have to be more radical, more edgy,
I agree. More radical and more edgy.
So
yes.
You can't be. I don't want to be. I don't want to do the Spike Lee for the Turkish community in Germany. That's not my job. It's just because then I'm also caught as an artist, always caught in these topics. Well, it's like, yeah, but I have all other interests too. I'm not just. Exactly. And this is there it starts, I suppose.
Yeah, like what I find, sorry, I'm just going to say this one thing. What I find, going off what you were just saying, is one of the ways that I have challenged this whole identity thing is that as a refugee from the global south, the only thing that I've been allowed, not me personally, but my community has been allowed to say publicly is thank you for letting us in. We are expected to perform gratitude, right, to the colonial government of Canada for, quote unquote, letting us in. And the only way that we are allowed to talk about our country of origin is to put it down, right, to essentialize it as and reduce it to a backward third world nation that can't get its shit together. So one of the things that I have been doing for the last 32 years is saying, fuck you, to that, narrative, yes, and not performing gratitude in public, and telling stories of real people, real refugees who are incredibly complicated, and who do not ever perform gratitude to the mainstream. In any of the books that I write, or the plays that I write, or now I'm starting to write for film as well and TV. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, one thing with that. One thing with that. Sorry.
Sorry, Balti.
Just one little thing I want to add. The other thing is we are always allowed to talk about racism, right? But we are not allowed to talk about, I don't know, the chemical industries, blah blah, or other problems. Because this is what I experience in Germany as well. Yeah, okay, you are the experts for racism, you can be in your corner, you can talk about racism all you want, So let's get this ongoing, because that's also convenient. But if I then go and say something about, I don't know, the banking crisis in 2008, everybody's like, whoa, that's not your, If I wanted to make a film about that, I would have problems in Germany getting it funded, because nobody would see in me the guy who is competent enough, to do such a movie. You see, so this also excludes us because we're always talking about this one topic, being migrants.
Yes. I don't know how to add to that, Nix.
I'm glad you're not walking off the stage. This is good. We're doing a good job. We're doing a good job.
Carmen,
Keeping him.
Thank you.
I don't know how to add to this mix now, but wow, there was so much. That was really exciting. So my brain was just going all over the place, well off the question. But anyways, yeah, I don't know, on identities. I mean, I'm just going to go whatever comes to my mind. Just watching your film yesterday. It was yesterday, right? The opening film. 2 days ago. I love that film, and it's just kind of like all that treasure trove of archive of a community. I'm like, wow, who decides what stories are valued and kept? He had to go dig in, the archives and get that. But it was just so incredible, and it made me think of, say, from my community, and we're just so, not there. Mm-hmm. Just a sidebar or a derogatory news story or... and there's all this beautiful sort of archive that's just maybe just in this collective memory. Maybe some of it was documented, but yeah, just whose stories get to be told, and whose is of value, right? Whose is archived in a way, you know what I mean? And how you had to search that. If you put Turkish music, you said you might be 2 artists, but you had to put economic crisis, oil, to get, to get into it. Mm-hmm. It just really made me think of how invisible sometimes we are, but how rich and what we bring. So that, thank you for that. That was super inspiring. And and I'm just gonna flip, but like, for me, like when I was doing my the documentaries I've done, the criticism often would be like, well, how will a white audience almost understand that? Like, Balti, you have to explain this, or Balti, you have to. I'm like, why? Like, it's not for that audience. Why do I have to do that? Or, you know, say because we're girls, it'd be this whole sequence in Punjabi, but it'd be like one line of subtitles. And people in the audience are like, I feel I really missed something because this one line, but this thing went back. I'm like, yeah, well, you know, things are lost in translation. You just really can't, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Why do we have, you get kind of what it is. So that's kind of important too, like just be authentic, like to what you want and not, you know what I mean? We always feel like we have to explain things, and what is mainstream? You know, that's white, right? Like, and also you, as an artist, I mean, you just feel like you don't have an opportunity to fail. Because you have to feel so thankful for getting that opportunity and funding. It's like, oh, God, I got to hit this out of the park. But white people, I mean, no disrespect to white people here, but, you know, you can make a lot of crap and just keep getting funded, you know, and you see a real trajectory of your career, and they can go on a stand and go, oh, that was crap, or I learned from that, or I got to, you know. We don't really have that opportunity. You get a couple shots, and that's it. You know, and then they're like, oh, and then they'll see you hit, say, you know, a narrative, like, what is that show everybody like, Sort of, you know, and that was like a play, and it's just like getting all this awards, and everybody now is like, oh yeah, I just knew, and you're like, yeah, right, like, you know, taking all the credit.
You ignored me when I called.
Right, but you know, that wasn't easy, and just that sort of authentic storytelling. And also, you know, you have to prove, like, yeah, there's authentic, but there's algorithms, right? It's being successful, or it's like whatever, right? Then they'll put money towards diversity of voices. But yeah, no, I just think like that's kind of a real drag, like for us. We still in that spot. Yeah, not to be allowed to fail as much and grow, right? Like that's how you grow and how you get better, right? Make mistakes, do better, be more open. Yeah, and so anyways, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm getting opportunities, and I don't know. I just feel like I haven't really.
Actually, I got lost also into the stories, and I was always thinking that it is one of the 5 minutes first conversation question that whoever I come across in around the world, where are you from? And always I'm thinking that, I will tell you where am I from, and you will come up with all the prejudices about my country, what the CNN want you to know about my beautiful country, and that perception, and I will start to fight. Let's not ask me, you know, because it is somehow like we are always starting from there, and then we are ending also there. And as an actor, I'm like trying to reduce and get all of them, all of the identity notions separate from my being. So it is interesting to hear from the storyteller how they approach, because for me, to embody what they dream of, and to fit in there is my journey mostly it's interesting to see your view of approach when you are dealing with all that, because when you are creating that, I'm mostly thinking that almost that you don't even think about who will be your audience. So it was interesting to hear that perception also. So it's quite like, in a way, calculating when you are immigrants. So the story is never ending. I am coming from a country, I had that stranger feeling, yet so connected. You are all of you immigrants, and now I'm about to be. So there are a lot of more struggle waiting on the way. And you tell about being actor and getting choose for some stereotype roles after a while. It's just quite fight, huh? So that was my thoughts when.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so amazing. You just feel good. You just put your heart on the line, and then you get applause. It's amazing.
That's the way we respond to what you say.
It's awesome. Thank you. Okay, I want to riff off of what you said about this issue of audiences and the construction of audiences and what that means, and the idea that a community can feel either vindicated by or supported by a particular work. And I know it differs for each person, but to what extent is it important for you to have a response from a particular constituency? I'm not even going to call it a community. You define it as you wish. When you're working on your projects, to what extent is there a desire to get affirmation from something, someone, a group of people? I know the pressures, the production pressures are okay. Are you getting an award? Is someone going to fund your next project? You always have to keep in mind, like, am I going to continue to be quote unquote sellable? And how many millions of viewers do I need to get and accrue to be able to get that, to secure that funding in the future? But let's set those aside for a minute and think about the creative and sort of justice-driven components of the work that you do. Where are those constituencies? Where are those affirmations coming from? Or where are you seeking those affirmations? You can sort of answer that about
Well, if I were to generalize about who I want to see my work, it's the working class, really. It's the working class. And I think I've been more or less successful at that, from what I hear. When I'm writing, I always imagine exactly who I'm writing for, and there's 3 groups of people that I imagine in the audience. One is a person who is literally exactly the same as me, and I have a person in mind all the time, which is a friend of mine who's also Latina, who has a very similar history to mine and has the same politics as I do. If you hadn't figured it out by now, I am a leftist.
Yeah, you can get applause for that. It is SFU.
Yes. And I also put somebody in the audience who is my exact opposite, and who's a person who I also know and who I love very deeply. And he's like an old white man who is ultra right-wing, pro-Trump, very racist and sexist and all these things. And for personal reasons, I love him. And I want to keep him in the audience. And he does come to my shows, and I managed to keep him in the audience. And then somebody who's in between. And so when I'm writing and creating, I have those 3 people in front of me in my mind. And I go, oh, he's just walked out. Okay, how important is it to keep him in the room? How do I do that? Oh, now she walked out. Okay, well, I want her to stay in the room. Yeah, I
see almost these polarities, and they're kind of pushing and pulling. Okay.
I should say that the man that I was describing is working class, as an aside. Yeah.
As is the, I mean, we're.
As are the other people that I imagine in my brain. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Carmen. That's wonderful. Anybody else? Oh yes, applause. Thank you.
So I don't know whether. That's very inspiring what you said. I'm going to find myself a right-wing white old man that I can imagine. Maybe he's homosexual, mine. I don't think of an audience, I'd say. I think mostly, but first of all, I don't do so many films, right? This is my 3rd film.
Yes.
And it takes 5 to 7 years to, to make a film because of this immense archive material. So which makes me a nerd. Because of all these archive footage watching. So I think of the other nerds who are going to watch my movie, because I'm like, hey, look, I found this first. It's a competitive thing, mostly. Now, because the other films I did, they weren't about migration or all these topics. The film Remake, Remix, Ripoff was about genre cinema, about Turkish films, or the Turkish film industry, making remakes and rip-offs of Hollywood blockbusters. So Turkish versions of Superman, Batman, The Exorcist, Some Like It Hot, you name it, there's a Turkish version to it. So E.T., a gay E.T., who was called Homo T. Really? Yeah, you should watch it. Or a Turkish version of Star Wars, these were that it was like people were really like in Turkey, though the intellectuals, or also the left-wing people, or everybody who thinks he's somehow elite or different, they didn't like those films, because this was like opium for the masses. This was like trash movies. Nobody wanted them. Everybody was joking about the films. And after my movie was out there, somehow the perspective shifted, because I was just offering a different perspective.
Yes.
And I think this is what I do in all my films, is just, if the tripod is here, I just put it there, and then all of a sudden you just have a different view on the things. I don't even move it like here, it's just a little movement. And so what I offer is just an alternative reading. And that's basically what I do, and I suppose that people who are interested in that are going to appreciate it, and that's the audience in the end, But with the working class, I'm with you too, because I wish my film that I did now would be watched by working class Turkish migrants or migrants from Turkey in Germany, because I don't reach that audience. Because mostly I'm reaching the second or third generation, people who are already educated, and my films are shown in art house cinemas mostly, and I'm missing the mass audience who should be seeing this particular movie, because it's about our past. And I think that's the next challenge, to somehow get there and get the worker and get the auntie that who came here in the 60s, to watch that particular movie.
Have you gotten any? I mean, have any of them been in attendance? Have you had these sort of incredible, revelatory, epiphanous moments where someone in the audience is like, "Oh my goodness"? Well, we kind of had that the other day, but it was a slightly different interpretation of what that meant. But is that an experience that you feel would be worthwhile as a filmmaker to get that sort of reaction?
The reaction is amazing, because mostly it's like this second generation, 20-something person goes into the movie, is excited, comes back with her or his parent or grandparents. This is the way it goes.
Yeah.
And that's it's 3 times they watch the movie, and that's the amazing part of it, and I think that's worth it. And also, I also get from the community with this particular movie again a feedback. I have, people are like in euphoria, because for the first time they see their past in film, in pictures, because our past or our stories and our history is somehow melted within the German post-war history. Somehow we are there, but we are not. This representation thing comes along there, and there's now 90 minutes of a film where you only are there. The Germans are not there. Not at all. And this is your story, and all of a sudden you're like, what? Really? We had Turkish people went on strike, on wild strikes without the syndicates, and they were successful doing that, and you get this empowerment thing all of a sudden, because you never heard of this.
Yes.
And I never heard of it before I started to do my researches. And I think this empowering moment is very important. And therefore, sure, I'm totally delighted and, thrilled when I get these feedbacks. Sure. But this is not a film that's designed or somehow, tailored for that kind of audience, that just automatically happens.
Yes. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about it. It's more instinctual. So I guess the audience is like, it's got. Me and all of what I bring. My background, my definitely come from working class. I've been here a while. Just like all people I really have admired who have encouraged me. I also, I also really, kind of value that my opportunity, to be able to have a voice or to work in the arts, not that I'm killing it or anything, but, just that I'm doing it.
Kind of are.
You know what I mean? No, but you know what I mean, right? Yeah. And I really feel like my grandmother, who's passed, I really feel that, she never had hardly any choices. you know, my mom was super creative in different ways, but wouldn't have had that opportunity. There was just so much to deal with, you know, like coming to this country, working in like in sweatshops, being responsible, bringing all your family here. You know, she was political. She would find moments of, you know, to listen to poetry. And when I was at university, she's like, oh, can you get me these books from the Asian library? And they'd be like books of poetry. And, you know, I didn't really like know so much, but all of that, you know, it's just sort of stayed with me. You know, like I really feel this, you know, that, I don't know, kind of like a privilege really to do that. And with that privilege, you know, I feel a lot of responsibility. And so if I'm doing a film, like a documentary, and whoever the sort of the main participants or that story is just trying to be I know authentic is overused, but you know what I mean, as caring, or have that be vulnerable and trust. Yeah. And if they would, you know, sort of like, I mean, I think what I bring in my experience and all of that, like certain subjects I wouldn't be able to do. You know what I mean? Like something, I don't know, really Gen, whatever the latest Gen X, whatever. You know what I mean? Like probably not. But there's so much from my background or my history that has not really been out there. So I just feel like, and that's kind of welcomed. Like we did, like I'm just giving some examples, like with all the films, they do like the festivals and all of that. And usually at festivals, it's mostly a mainstream or of a white audience. And then, you know, you'll have people, because it's urban, it's downtown, or like wherever they'll come. And, you know, they pick up the daily whatever, Georgia Strait, and read about it or something, they'll come, but it's not really in the community. So like say with Because We're Girls, we really wanted to have community screenings. And the community organized the screenings. Like they came up to me and they're like, hey, this needs to be in Surrey. I'm like, organize it. Boom, they organized it, sold out, packed. And I would look out and see like 90% Indian. I'm like, holy moly. And then Abbotsford, somebody girl comes up at that screening, you know, you need to show this in Abbotsford. I go, make it happen, we'll come. Boom, done, sold out. Like, and women were just like weeping, but they really felt like that story resonated, and then it just makes you feel like, yeah, it's so worthwhile, you know? It's like I'm in the right lane, I'm in my lane, I'm okay. But I don't really have sort of the, I don't know, academic to break it down. Sort of instinctual, it's respectful, and I just feel like I kind of bring like all my ancestors with me in a way, and people I really admire, you know, that, you know, a lot of them are no longer here, you know, but I was blessed to be in that space, you know, like I have an uncle that, you know, he's since passed, but he was so political and he'd always teach us things, and even you hated it, you know. But he was also like that uncle, kind of like my big fat Greek wedding, whatever, remember? Everything came from India, you know. Did you know? Or anything, you know, like not Europe, like he would just always highlight zero or decimal, like whatever, anything to make you feel good, because he knew in schooling we were just like totally not valued, right? So he would do it and share his stories, or you know, you're just like, oh my God, you know, here comes this long story about something. But you know, now I feel so grateful. He just gave me all these gifts, you know, of being curious, and you know, you could always ask any question, and I would see interesting people, or I'd see them, you know, like there was a time in the Sikh community, there was real, like, well, there still is, but a real division between moderates and fundamentalists, and I saw him just able to negotiate between these two, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, you know, and just like little bits, you know, like from people, like not so much the artists or academics, but people I've been able to share time with, and sort of the wisdom they've given me, you know. Like, you know, watch what comes out of your mouth. Language is everything. You could really hurt somebody by what you say, you know, just things like, you know, you might have heard from an aunt. Like, all of that, it just sort of flows through me, I think. And I just feel real privileged in doing that. And I just hope I can honor all that that's been gifted. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. Q&A? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, I never think of audiences as an actor. It is the producers and directors' problem, I would say, mostly. But my problem, my responsibility, I would say, never problem, it's my pleasure, but towards the role that I'm playing, and also the general idea of what the project is aiming to say. So in that sense, Actually, I was in a TV show about this stereotyping in 2015, and I started as a very idealist doctor that really healed a lot of children, and she's genius doctor, and she's independent, she's in love, married, but all of a sudden she's realizing that actually that's not a love, more like a habitat now, and she's falling in love with a man. Basic storyline was this. All of a sudden, because of the stereotyping, it was streaming on TV, so generally they are so much taking care of the ratings, and they are constructing the idea upon it. So all of a sudden I find out in the storyline that my husband is cheating on me before me. Actually it was neat, like the story was totally different. And the argument was just like, because the audience, the people not going to accept if a woman that they love and connect so much is going to cheat on husband. And then they made her to become like a nanny of a guy while she was an idealist doctor. So all of a sudden, again, I was asking to myself, what am I really doing? Is it a respect to my own, to my job? Am I really doing and keeping the people's time of 2.5 hours, because our TV shows are long? With what I am saying to them, when you fall in love, skip your life, doesn't matter, and you can go and just like become a nanny of your patriarchal society demands, and you can fit in a role that's where you were contrary different. So in that sense, I can tell about that is resonating with me more about respecting what the role is demands. Even on the journey, if it will get lost. Then after that, by the way, I just genuinely asked to my producers to excuse me, and I stopped playing in the show, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to say that before we open this up to the audience, that I'm deeply touched by everything that was said today. I know that while sometimes discussing identity seems frivolous and out there and excessive, as Jim very sort of eloquently put it. But there are other instances where dealing with and addressing identity is very heavy and very intense, and we grapple with it as a way to resolve traumas and things of that sort. And of course, we never want this to be a spectacle for voyeurs who want to watch and excavate out of this. But knowing where we are and knowing who the audience is, the Vancouver Turkish Film Festival has created a remarkable opportunity for us to come together and to talk between and across boundaries. So I really appreciate how intersectional and how open and how evocative the conversation has been, and very effective. So I appreciate everything that you said, and I know that a lot of these things are deeply personal. So it's meaningful to me, and it's meaningful to our audience. And in a sense, it's also emblematic of what Turkey as a country has been from time immemorial to today, that it's always been a crossroad for people and ideas and experiences and cultures and civilizations. And so for us to be able to bring that here to Vancouver and have a discussion where we elaborate on what it means to be, indigenous, Latinx, and struggling with migration, and to discuss what it means to be grappling with identity through Turkish mainstream filmmaking, and to talk about what the migrant Turkish experience is as far as popular culture and production in these locales in Germany and across Europe, and to also think about like Indo-Canadian, communities and how disenfranchised they are, and how their voices are downtrodden and forgotten and effaced and erased. All of that is really, really amazing. And there is an integral connection between all those things. So I thank you all for every single word that you've said, even if I disagreed with it, which you won't know. And now we're going to open this up to the audience. I think Nural has a roving microphone.
Thank you for sharing some of your experience. I'm Shiraz, I'm 74, and I'm creator Grandparents Film Festival. And in Germany, they have a Grandmother's Film Festival in Munich. So there are some films coming with the stories of elders and so on. But I still find like we had a movie last year, Minari, which had a grandmother who got the prize for the best. So what do you think about the representation of elders' stories, especially happy elders, not suicidal elders or dementia, because I think that part is overrepresented in North America. Unlike in Asia, there are a lot of funny. So we don't see many films like Working Class because there are a lot of stories. We are getting some biographies of women singers, like we had Omara and so on. So, and also you guys are probably in your 30s or 40s or more. What do you see yourself in 20 years? What do you think should be represented, and what type of films would you make? Would you make films which are of your age or still focusing on other stuff? Thank you. I think it's a question.
Okay, we met before. You've been here in 2019 too. You asked the same question. I think in my Q&A, and I was recommending to you some Turkish movies about elderly people, like Pandora's Box. Have you ever watched it? Yeah, you watched it. Wow. Okay. So in my particular case, I'm doing movies and films about the 60s and 70s. So mostly all the people I talk to are old people. Look, Gaspar Noé, he had a new movie called Vortex. That was an amazing film about a couple, old couple in France, and I think the male part was played by Dario Argento. This is a film I highly recommend. It's an amazing movie, and yeah, films like that are being done, and also the film Rabia Kurnaz that is going to be shown here at the festival. It's tomorrow, right? It's about the woman of a guy who was in Guantanamo. The mother, she plays the mother, and the director of that movie, Andreas Dresen, he did a movie, I think 3 or 4 years before that, about really old people and sexuality, for instance. So there's a lot of that kind of films are happening. I see that in Europe at least, and also in the States. My work is documentary work, so I can't choose. You know, it's just about the topic. When I'm talking about this and that topic, and I need people to talk about it, then I go there and find the right people. And because I now was showing in the first in the first 30 minutes of my movie, I portrayed a really old singer and songwriter, a folk singer, a Turkish folk singer who went to Germany and started singing songs about Germany. And he was very famous in his age, in the 60s, because he was the first one who raised his voice against the exploitation of Turkish workers in Germany. And so it was a pleasure to meet him. And then also another superstar called Yüksel Özkasap, the Nightingale of Cologne. She was a star among the first workers who went to Germany, and now she's an old lady. But you know, we somehow managed to make an interview with her and film her and all these things. So it's mostly, maybe we don't think about how we represent old people, but when the story does fit, sure, they are represented in our films. And also in Remake, Remix, Ripoff, most of the guys I was talking to were over 65. But that's the genre. I mean, that's when you talk about genre films in the 60s and 70s, most of the people are that age.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, next question.
Thank you all for your comments, and I appreciate the warmth that you brought to us today. I was wondering how you guys negotiate the polarity between fear and empowerment in your work. Carmen, you are fearless, so I think I know some of your answer, but I would like to know more, Carmen, but as well with the others. There is an element of fear because we are representing, and who are we representing to, and authenticity and all that, but I just wanted to get back to that fear and empowerment because you are in both positions, I think, at least. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you think I'm fearless because it's actually not true. And I think that's a really great question because the way that I approach every work that I do is if I'm not terrified, then I don't do it. So if I'm not risking my entire self with every project that I do, then I'm not digging deep enough. Whether it's form, content, ideally both. So that is the only way that I will approach the work. Otherwise, it's just safe and boring. And, I can really relate to what you were saying, Baljeet. I come from ancestors who had no opportunities whatsoever, completely exploited, surviving day to day. And so the fact that I have the privilege to do what I do, to be a storyteller, feels like a massive responsibility to my ancestors, and I'm including my parents in this as well, who, basically lost all their dignity, when we arrived here, when they were both expelled from Chile after the Pinochet coup. And therefore, I consider it a very huge responsibility, I'm just going to use that word again, to do what I do. And there's no way I'm going to let myself get away with being safe. So I have to be terrified, otherwise I'm just, if I'm not, I'm not digging deep enough, I'm being safe. Yeah.
Anybody else want to speak to that question? No? Okay.
Oh. Turkey is a bridge to 4 continents. For it to be pure white, it's impossible. But if you look in the phone book, including my last name, everything starts with the word Öz, which means pure, and Anamazar. So you have everything from Kurdish to, as we were saying, Armenian, all these catchwords are, yes, I support Kurdish people, yes, I support Armenians, yes, I support queers, yes, I am queer. But all these things, you can't be those things in Turkey and talk about authenticity, which is a lot of academic bullshit jargon, I'm sorry. Okay? A lot of what you were saying, except for you, Carmen, I really didn't understand half of what you guys were talking about. First of all, because it's so academic, so inaccessible, for us to be in this room even, okay, that's privilege. So, yes, working class, even working class. The coal miners in Turkey, even if there is films being made about them or stories being told, are they making the film? No, they're not. Same thing with the gentleman in the back. If we want the elder stories, teach them how to use the camera.
That's not my job.
No, that's what we all have jobs.
Yeah.
And also to be authentic, it's impossible when you fear, first of all, you can't speak Kurdish in Turkey. It's against the law. You can't be a trans or queer. Well, that's when I grew up. I left 45 years ago, and I grew up in a gypsy neighborhood, and that too. Even my own sisters they have not told their husbands or children that they grew up in Tepecik. As far as they know, they grew up in Karşıyaka. So yes, fear and authenticity is a contradiction. Turkey is full of contradictions. And we have Afro-Turks, for example, that are finally coming out of the closet. When I grew up in Izmir, well, of course, some of my best friends were black. Not saying that like some of my best friends are black, but they actually were. You know what I mean? So, but in Turkey, the Afro-Turk photo, whatever, at the gallery, is not put on by Afro-Turks. It's all by white Turks. Okay, so, and for what I could understand, I think all of you made a lot of sense, and I appreciate your stories. You too, Baj. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ersin and I'm a settler here, and thank you for organizing this panel and festival. So I teach psychology courses at various post-secondary institutions, and I have been watching these culture wars, and some people say left is losing it. And the reason they say why we are losing it is that we have adopted this anything goes, everything is relative kind of attitude. So the idea is that, like, I'll be very open with this. So each identity we celebrate, but certain identities, certain groups may have some destructive sides, like political doctrines. And they may have a community with it, like they may build that community, and it may become a problem, and maybe in Germany, you know, like let's say self-segregating communities. So maybe they are intentionally not in contact with Germans, like maybe Jen may elaborate on that. But my understanding is that this kind of, they say academically, postmodern epistemology creates this fragility and wokeness. Now there's that criticism too, so they say we are losing. And maybe this question is for the moderator, that it has become a bit...
You're going to get me into trouble.
See,
I've already been bashed as an academic.
See, there are always things that we don't talk about. And what's your name? Excuse me, this last person. Burcu expressed something saying that, we know that sociologically we are very diverse in Turkey, but political homogenization has been a pain in us. And if you like Kurdish Christian claimed 40,000 lives. And any movie, anything that you do, you have to take some responsibility to address part of it, right? So, or in terms of workers' rights, so I'm really impressed by Carmen's stance with the working class. You know, we can celebrate all identities, but I cannot celebrate people, I celebrate your working class membership, stay there. You know, don't have any aspiration to hold capital or to grow. My question is, on the left, are we losing something? Like in terms of, you know, like after all the identity stuff, we talked about one notion called authenticity, right? So we are trying to find something universal, something core, and that's more like a modern approach to self. So are we going to go back to what is common in humanity in 20, 30 years? That's my question. So what's on the left, like with people, progressive people, what should we be doing? That's one question. And another question is this, I always love this one. We always bring food and, you know, our music to Canada, and we try to show who we are. But what can we bring from Canada to Turkey? Maybe that's for Belchim. What is the one thing or two things that we can bring from Canada to Turkey?
Acceptance. Acceptance. Because according to what Burcu said and what you said, authenticity and attachment, I want... it is somehow for what I just said before, but just for to fitting in, we are creating some core belief, and they are killing us. I don't know if any of you know Gabor Mate. He's revolutionizing psychology right now, and he's saying that racism and discrimination is killing us. It is killing us. In Turkey, we are dying. So that's why, for me, for example, I run after my authenticity, and that's why I find myself here. Everybody around me was saying, "Are you fucking crazy? You have your career, you have your things, and now you are leaving." But if I'm not feeling free, and who am I? What am I leaving for, you know?
This topic is actually really dear to all of us as progressive people, you know, gathered here today to discuss this is already as itself a big thing. My only short point is, as human beings, none of us choose where we are born, who our parents are. We somehow born somewhere. And that's why it's so important to discuss this identity issue. And also from Carmen's point of view, you know, we are mostly for the workers' rights and, you know, social movements and all that. And I believe when it comes to be the workforce or anything like that, or the system we are sometimes questioning and trying to change, it doesn't really matter for from what identity or ethnic background we are. when it comes to, for example, a factory owner, if they want to exploit those people working there, they don't really distinguish between what ethnicity they are. It doesn't matter. For the system to go on, to keep us in silos is really important, because that's how this system goes on. Then we are all distracted, we are just clashing with each other, and we actually lose that unity which Arsen was talking about.
And thank you so much.